Call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as the minutes have been distributed, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as distributed?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion? Motion carried. Tarpon Towers seeker. Mr. Yeager.
Yes, so planning board reviewed part 2 of the seeker at the town board's request. The only 2 areas of concern that the planning board identified were SHPO determination, State of Historic Preservation Office determination, because the site is in an archaeologically sensitive area. We have received that now, and SHPO has no further concerns. And at the time when the planning board reviewed part 2 of the seeker, we had not received the visual assessment that was provided this week, simply because of weather. They hadn't been able to do the balloon fly. So we've received those 2 documents. Provided the town board doesn't have any additional concerns in regards to seeker, we would be in a position to declare a negative declaration.
Okay. All right. What do we have to do further with that then?
You got to open the public hearing again for anybody that wants
but I
to
mean,
speak.
All right. Yeah. Do that. All right, so Tarpon Towers, Verizon Cell Tower public hearing continuation. May I have a motion to open up the public hearing?
I'll move it.
I'll second that.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against? Yes, sir.
I have a few questions to ask. And back when Abbott wanted to subdivide the property along Doyle Road, where there's homes now and a group home, it was supposed to be land set aside forever green, it was called. And that's part of the area where the cell towers to go. And on the map from the town, it says conservation area, which I'm told means the same thing. I spoke at that meeting and said, what'll happen 15 years from now, 100 years from now, about somebody wanting to build something there? And they said, no, it can never happen.
Okay.
Now I hear it's happening, and nothing supposedly we could do about it. I don't remember what year it was I spoke or anything. I wanted to try to find the records. And I was to the town clerk and she couldn't find them. She left me a phone message. I'd like to play it if I can. I recorded it.
Okay.
Play it?
How long is it?
About a minute.
Okay.
I'm pretty slow with this. It's not that I'm opposed to the cell tower, but I think the cell tower should kind of blend in with the terrain. Not so that it looks like what's up across from Budweiser. You know, but those towers were put in.
Why don't you ask her what she said?
I didn't speak with him.
Otherwise, we'll just see what the meeting this Thursday. Thank you.
Oh,
It's a minute and 16 seconds. Here we go.
Old message. Okay, 4:07 p.m. Hi, Paul. This is Mary Ellis in the town of Lysander. I spoke with you today at the window regarding some information you were looking for the Abbott proposed cell tower. I did talk to the town clerk, Dana, about this, and bring this up at the town meeting on Thursday. But it's kind of a done deal anyway for the cell tower going in there. So even if we were to dig and get all this information, it's already been signed and put into the path. So it's already in the works. But of course, feel free to stop back if you have additional questions, or otherwise we'll just see you at the meeting this Thursday. Thank you.
Well, so she says it's signed, done, so this is almost mute.
I think what she meant was that it's on the agenda to be passed. That's what she meant, I believe.
That's not
But
what
did
she
you,
said.
did you tell her she was being recorded?
She recorded it.
Did
It's a
you?
voice
But-
memo.
okay.
She recorded it on my phone, I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
home.
All right. So,
That's why I asked.
I think she just meant because it was on the agenda that,
Well, I don't know,
so I'm not really sure what,
but that's not
But I'll let the
what's
supervisor
stated.
speak to that.
No, it's clear what was said in there, but that's not the case. I think that,
Okay, but if this goes forward, what I think they ought to do is the town make provisions to make a person putting in a cell tower to camouflage it. I think at the church would be a better location. Put a steeple on the church, put a bell tower there, camouflage it in. Put it on top of Abbott's Barns where he's got a cross today and looking good, just make it blend in. Don't deteriorate from the land that's there. Thank you.
is there anybody else that would like to speak on this issue?
Good evening, members of the town board. Jared Lusk from Nixon Peabody, representing Tarpon and Verizon Wireless. I spoke at the last meeting, and we realized that there were the visual analysis that needed to be completed, and we had conducted the balloon fly at before the last meeting, but the simulations weren't complete. I think it's important to understand the law with regard to cell towers, and understand, again, that we have gone through, the town has a very extensive and thorough wireless telecommunications law. It's probably one of the most, I don't want to say it's among the most complicated laws that you have in upstate New York. There's a lot of information that's requested, and there's a lot of information that was provided to you. The fact remains is that your zoning code has been set that wireless telecommunications are permitted in the town, if we can show you where it's needed. Your law is consistent with the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 and New York State case law that declares it being a public utility. We all know, I've heard a lot of people come up to the microphone over the last, the 3 meetings that I had been at, both at the planning board and 2 here. Never once have I heard anyone say we didn't need the coverage. I was there, we went, I think I was there with the supervisor, we had a site visit.
Yeah.
This area is uncovered. We went through the last meeting, we went through the RF coverage maps. This part of town is covered from towers in 2 neighboring towns. If you look back at those RF plots, we have evenly spaced a tower here to be between those two towers. You need coverage here. We need it, and this was the location. We provided you with a search ring that says if we're going to provide this coverage, this necessary coverage, it's got to be in this search ring. We worked with you and went through with Al and the planning board. We reviewed the locations that were available, that we looked at when we're in the search ring. We provided it. Again, federal law says that the town, once we have demonstrated a need, and nobody disputes the need for the tower, we have to put the tower in the most appropriate location for purposes of coverage. We've gone through the different options. We presented that to you, and we provided you with the visual issue, or the visual simulations. Excuse me. If you look at the visual simulations, and again, from various locations, you're going to see the tower. But when you look at the other things that are in the background, this is not obtrusive in the neighborhood. Again, I recognize that that's a matter of opinion, etc. But this is not a 250-foot tower. This is a very modest tower compared to cell towers. 120 feet 120-foot tower just above the trees in the city. Don't take my word for it, look at the simulations on the balloon fly. So I can urge the board, we have, in my view, met the requirements of the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996, New York State case law regarding public utilities, and from my perspective and our client's perspective, we have met the minimum standards for the board to approve. We ask that you approve the tower. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else?
Paul went, but Mary Ellis, I'm the one that left that voicemail for Paul. Just to reiterate that I appear to have been confused with what I might have said to him on the message, but I am a new employee, still learning, so if I said something that is incorrect, I apologize.
We'll put you in the corner.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I got your back, Mary. I got your back.
Kevin Road, 1405 Greenmore Way. I'm not up to snuff on the cell tower law. What are the minimum setbacks from property lines?
So you have to provide a fall zone.
Okay. So it goes by the height of the tower?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I know a previous resident had said something, because he's one of the existing properties, and it's 120 feet, which seems like a long ways, but it isn't, and it's like 900 feet from their house. But is that 900 feet from the nearest property? Or so that's 140 feet off the property line?
Yeah, 120 feet, yes.
120 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just, knowing that, the lot on the other side might eventually be for sale, or it is already, and, the other person, maybe we could move this further into Abbott's property and solve some issues. And I'm not sure if the previous person was talking about TDR or green space requirements. And I know we've changed the information on that since then in the town laws. But, maybe we move this further into Abbott's field if that's suitable for the cell people to still work in that area. That's all.
Do you mind, Supervisor? I believe the Abbott's chose this location, so it didn't encumber
Their property.
the tillable agricultural land to the
Right,
least
well,
extent possible.
that's the choice you take when you give up a farm field, to give up more. And the town board can decide that if they choose.
Fred Birch, 8865 Plainville Road. As the board knows, I don't live in the affected area. I'm not building the tower, so my comments and thoughts kind of come from a different view. I've lived in this town my entire life, 54 years. So whether you like me or not, I do have a good handle on this town and what people think. I've knocked on more doors than all these people on this spot, I promise you. Promise you. But I'm not upset that a tower is going in. I just think that our processes might be a little bit long in the tooth. I know there's laws, town laws, on notifications to affected people, distances and timing, and where we put those notifications, i.e. the messenger or a town website or something. There was a time 30, 40, 50 years ago when probably everybody that lived in this town read the messenger, because we didn't have all the other things, the smartphones, to distract us. People don't do that. I mean, I think the messenger has a problem. They can't even give the paper away, and that's sad. So what I'm trying to say is I think maybe, although I know this board is doing things by town law and state law, maybe we can do better than that. Like when you try to get the taxes down lower, to get them lower than the surrounding towns, we can do better than those towns. Maybe we can do better with the notifications. like I know there's a certain foot distance from the project that you have to notify. An approach I might take if I were sitting on the board is I would personally go out and knock on doors. I'd find a Saturday afternoon, an hour, or Sunday afternoon, and an hour. It wouldn't have to be election season. And I'd knock on the door and I'd invite the people to come down. I wouldn't say I'm for it or against it. I'll just say that it's something that is going to affect this town and these people in the area one way or another. I want to get you involved and get your opinion.
Well, we do send letters.
I know we send the letters. If there was a way, maybe we could get a little bit earlier notification and then a little bit further distance. I think it's 500 feet or something like that. I don't think a quarter mile is too much to ask for as far as notification for something like that. And I don't want you to get mad at me, but I think you're doing a good job. But I think maybe something like this would be, and I don't know what the law is, but could be subject to a permissive referendum where the people in the area affected by it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that live there that want better cell phone coverage and would come out and say, yeah, I want that. But I think something that's important, that's going to affect people's biggest investment in their life, which is their home, 90% of us, that's what it's going to be, should involve more people in the process. And thank you for your time.
Anyone else? All right.
Nicholas Petta, 7800 Hicks Road. I just wanted to answer a couple statements, or throw
Well,
my
no.
statements.
Yeah, we're not gonna, you can address whatever you're doing to the board.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll
Okay.
address it to you, but it's really to him.
Right. Well, what we don't want to get into is argument.
No, it's no
back and
argument, I
forth,
just want to make a statement.
Okay.
He said it's not intrusive to any neighbors. Well, I disagree totally, it's very intrusive to me. It's, if I ever subdivide there, how am I gonna sell any of that property? You know, I got a 120-foot tower right there. It's gonna be pretty hard to sell it, you know. I mean, I heard a couple people here last week stating when they bought their house, there was a tower, they refused to go there. So, I mean, that's in the back of my mind.
Well, look at the development right across the street from
Right,
Budweiser.
right.
There's a cell tower right there.
Understand.
And they sold every one of those lots and
Okay.
didn't have a problem, and houses in this area are selling within
Okay.
a day or 2 days and getting multiple offers, usually 10,000.
Well, I don't know if I want to
So-
take that chance.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I mean, but, you know, things that you're worried about just don't, really aren't coming to fruition because we don't have that problem even with the cell towers.
I don't know if I agree with you.
And
Right.
like the gentleman said, it's a matter of perspective, so I
Right,
understand your
right.
perspective. I'm just saying when it comes to, you know, lowering house
Mm-hmm.
values and things, that just doesn't seem to be occurring.
Has anyone talked to Mr. Abbott and asked him why he's got to put it there and he can't put it next to his barn?
I don't know.
Why did he choose that spot? Well, he chose it because it's best for him, you know, not his neighbors. Why can't we get that, if it ends up being there, why can't we get that to look like a Christmas tree? I see it all the time on the internet, and this gentleman says he didn't want to do it or whatever the reason
No,
is.
I don't think he said he didn't want to do it. He said that it blended in, and there's reasons why it's done in, you know, certain things are done in certain areas, but in this area, that doesn't seem to be appropriate.
What's
As he-
blending in?
Well,
Steel
as-
structures blending into a forest?
Well, if you had a silo there. that
There's
would-
no silo there.
No, I said if Mr. Abbott put a silo
Yeah.
in his area, well, what's that made out of? Galvanized steel, so that.
Some of them are brick. Yep.
Okay, but some are steel as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so they wouldn't blend in, and he would be well within his rights.
Right, but that's not 120 foot tall.
Well, you have. right
I had
now-
a silo on my barn. I don't mean to argue with you.
No,
but
I'm just, you know,
Yeah.
we're having a discussion,
Right.
but right down the street from my house, there's electrical towers up there. And
Right.
they're all galvanized steel, and
Mhm.
I don't know if they're 120 feet, they probably aren't, they're
Right.
probably more like 60 feet.
Right.
But still, I mean, we get used to whatever we have, and.
Understand that.
When it
And-
comes to progress. I mean, there's give and takes with everything, and I understand your perspective.
Right.
from
I mean,
your
I'm
property.
not, yeah, I'm not against the
Yeah.
tower, really.
But from your property rights, you would like it somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't want it right next door, right on my property.
Right, but here's the thing, like, why did he pick it?
Yeah.
Because it's his property, it's probably better for him.
Understand that.
Just like your property, I mean, if it was your
Right.
property, you'd probably put it
But
down.
he's got a
below.
lot
I
of
mean,
land, and he could put it where it's not intrusive to anyone, including himself.
Yeah, you'd have to.
You know, yeah, but he didn't come over and knock on my door. This gentleman, they called me too, okay?
Mhm.
And that's another thing I want to ask about, because I made notes when the guys called me to put it on the property, and they told me it was 5G. When I asked this gentleman, he said, no, it's 4G. So why would the representative of the company say it's 5G to me? When they called to put it on my property.
I don't know. I mean, mistakes are made. I don't know, but we'll ask him that.
Okay. And as far as the cell coverage, you guys are all welcome to come over and pull in my driveway. I've never dropped a phone call in that area.
I drop phone calls every
No,
single day.
I totally
drop them
disagree
at the
with you.
one. Come in my car. My brother actually lives on Gloria Drive.
Maybe there's some waves or something from
No,
lines,
that's-
but I'm gonna tell you something else. My niece lives next door to
Not
Mrs. Capicelli, and has never dropped any.
I don't mean drop where it actually hangs up, but it's,
It's
you
wild.
can tell that you're swapping cell towers too,
Okay.
right? So there's
No,
a lot of dead
again,
air
you know,
between those
I don't want to
spots.
say that I'm totally against it, I'm not. It doesn't bother me, it's like you say. In a year, I won't even recognize it there, because my trees will be over it, you know? But
And
I'm just,
I'm not saying from your perspective.
Right.
It isn't an annoyance. That's not what I'm saying.
right, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
With anything, there's always somebody affected in some way.
I got it.
And you know, try to make sure that, you know, we do the best we can for everybody that we
Right, I
can.
understand.
But when it comes to certain things like cell towers, I mean, today, most people don't have, I doubt if anyone in this room doesn't have a cell phone on them. And what's the first thing in an emergency they go to is their phone.
Right.
Well, if you're just using a phone, and there are, and I disagree with you, you go down 370 or you go down River Road, you're going in and out. When I'm talking on my phone.
Why are you talking
Which
in
is
your phone
it's
in your
hands,
car?
I was gonna say that, it's hands-free, it's hands-free.
You heard that.
It's hands-free, oh, he'll be ready to pump me on. It's hands-free, but it goes in and out. In fact, anybody I talk to, I tell them, it's gonna go in and out, just hold on, because as I go further down, you get reception. So there is a, you know,
Okay.
there's, maybe not where you live,
Yeah,
but there is a
no,
problem
I'm
there.
sitting
And
right
that's,
away.
but that's, no, I'm not doubting you, you know, but when it comes to public safety, people need to be able to get communication, and if you need the internet, they need the internet. People work, kids are going to school.
I don't
So-
disagree with you. I work from home now since COVID, and I've never dropped off internet either.
But you're one of the lucky ones.
I guess.
There
I
are
guess I
some
got the
people
spot.
that- Yeah, right.
Okay. But yeah, is there any way we can talk to Mr. Abbott and see what his thoughts are?
Are you kidding?
What do you mean?
No, that's,
No, I didn't mean that to be sarcastic.
I'm serious.
He's unavailable.
Let me just add, it's not in the town's position.
I know, but are we
to
gonna
tell a
vote on it
homeowner
tonight?
To tell an owner who he should sell his
Right.
property to.
No, I got it.
So
I
we can't
understand.
get
I don't want to
involved.
tell somebody that owns a piece
Okay,
of property.
we can't do that either.
I got it. I just wanted to say, can we have time to go talk?
well, I don't think I'm gonna, I know I'm not gonna go talk to, I don't know.
No, I said I'm going to go talk to him.
Neighbors.
I'm asking as a neighbor, can I go talk to the gentleman?
Oh, sure.
Find out.
We can't stop you from
Yeah,
talking to
okay.
anybody. I mean, if you like, sure you can.
Right.
You know, I think, you know, from my perspective, from Mr. Abbott, once he's made up his mind, he kind of made up his mind.
Okay, but
That's
maybe
my,
I can change it.
That's my interactions with him.
Now, is this Mr. Abbott or Warren?
I'm not sure.
Who do I don't know who to
I
talk to.
think he could talk to either one of them.
Either one of them, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Is there anybody else? Yep, that's ma'am.
Sir, excuse me. I didn't hear your name.
Nicholas Petta.
Oh, Mr. Petta. Now I know who you are.
Oh, okay.
You live down.
Yep,
below,
right there,
okay.
7800.
How you did that, I'll never know, but it's like the opposite of the Taj Mahal.
Hmm.
Anyway, I apologize. I was not making a
No, that's no
comment about
problem.
you.
No
I
worries.
spoke about this last week. I'm Joanne Capicelli, and I live next door to your niece. That's
Yep.
why I was trying to figure it
Right.
out.
The only thing I would ask is, to be as concise as you can, because our clerk was having a hard time keeping up with you last time.
And I got several remarks about how well I did for my first meeting
I'm
here.
not, no, I'm not.
And
I'm
you
not-
repeated most of what I
Yeah,
said
I'm
in your
not-
speech.
I'm not commenting anything that.
Well, that's insulting.
I'm just saying, I'm just asking you to be as concise as you can, that's all.
I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Do you have something that says how long people can speak?
No, I apologize if I'm so.
That's right, you should.
I did.
Okay, and now you're making it longer because I wasn't even talking to you.
Okay.
I was trying to give my address.
Okay.
I'm at 3015 Cameron Dale Road. I live next door to this gentleman's niece, and I find it 100% impossible that he's never dropped a call. Jody's dropped calls, her husband's dropped calls. My husband worked at home for over 2 years. He couldn't use the internet for Zoom meetings, and we all have the same. I don't know about you. Which service do you have?
Just Verizon.
Verizon?
Must be good.
Well, if you would
In the road, we have Time Warner Spectrum.
Mrs. Capsell, if you would just address us as opposed to.
I just wanted him to
No, I
know,
understand.
because I said last week, and it was the number one point I was trying to make, and you made it tonight. I didn't say anything while you were talking. Progress. Some people lived here when we had the road, and I don't remember the name of the people when I first moved in, but they had horse and buggies. They're right across from me. And there's actually a sign there, because they have the right of way. You know which farm I'm talking about across?
No.
You don't know?
No, I don't know which farm you're talking
It's the one across, not, Abbott's is behind.
about. That still doesn't help you out. 'Cause I don't know what
You're
you're
a
talking
town
about.
supervisor, and you
But
don't know the
but
land?
I don't know every house in the town.
I'm not saying a house, it's a street.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'll find out and let you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyway, they were known for their horses and buggies. And then cars came by and knocked them out. Progress. Now, some people liked it, some people didn't, but what are you gonna do? Is anybody here in the fire department? Police department? Well, I live also right near the volunteer fire department. And what would we do without those guys? What if they're not getting service?
No, I agree with you. I said depending on where you live up there,
Well, I live parallel to the
and
Abbotts.
you said you weren't getting.
My husband and I've gone to Verizon, my phone is a Verizon.
Mhm.
But our house, everything else, including our alarm, is Spectrum, originally Time Warner. Okay? Terrible. And it's not been like that in the beginning. I've lived there 42 years. It's only the last 3 or 4 years it's been like this.
And that's what they've identified.
And they
with the
took
tower.
down a cell tower a while ago. I don't know if this company knows about it or not. I told my husband we were gonna put up a new one and the service would be better, and I'm assuming this is what they're talking about. So I'm all for it.
Thank you. And I didn't mean to offend you in any way. So if I did, which apparently I did.
I accept your apology. Don't do it again though, because I'm not too good at doing it.
No, I won't.
times.
I won't make that mistake. Okay.
Nobody else is, right?
Yeah. Is there, well, let's see. Is there anybody else? Okay.
Okay, I make a quick comment, or just maybe ask a question. The very first gentleman that came up to the mic and then left, talked about Forever Wild green space, and somebody, Tony or Al or someone, maybe verify this?
My understanding, this happened years before I was here, back in 2010, I think. There was supposed to be a conservation easement given to the town that covered this property. To date, we have not been able to find any deeded conservation easement to the town. So as far as I know, one does not exist.
Okay, so,
I have a little bit more backstory on this.
okay, please.
So, as part of the TDR program, this parcel was one of the sending areas for development rights. The town never moved forward with the grant from New York State Ag and Markets to implement the TDR program. Mr. Abbott did agree to the conservation easement areas. In those areas, the map of those areas was filed against the deed of all the parcels that were included in the sending area. However, the actual easement was never executed and filed against the deed because Mr. Abbott did not receive the funds he was promised for the development rights because the TDR program was never implemented. So yes, there is a map that identifies the area the areas that were supposed to be sending areas as part of the TDR program, which would have been included in the conservation easement. However, the conservation easement was never executed.
So there is no.
The map that he's talking about, there was a deed that combined separate tax parcels into one tax parcel. That deed exists, but that's all that exists. So instead of 5 tax parcels, there's one.
Okay, so there is no conservation easement.
Not to my knowledge.
No, the TDR program was never implemented, so the conservation easement was never executed.
What is the TDR program for?
Transfer of development rights.
Okay, so then my other question is, I've heard several people talk about camouflaging this tower. But it hasn't really been addressed. I mean, it has been addressed in the form that this isn't going to stand out. Could it be further addressed? Can this tower be camouflaged? And Mr. Birch at the last meeting spoke about the one out in Fayetteville, which I also drive by fairly regularly. Big, tall, fir tree-ish looking thing. What is the opposition to that? Is it cost? What is the opposition to that? And you did talk a little bit about, well, it would stick out like a sore thumb if it looked like this or if it looked like that. I'm curious if that is something that is, if the people who are living in the area are concerned about it, what is the holdup?
Well, again, as I said, I believe I said it to this board, a tower, a camouflage tower in the right context makes sense. And when you look at the simulations and you look at the tower, it is not, although there's trees, but it just sticks above. When you have other trees of similar height, it'll be fantastic. Now, if you don't have the other similar trees, it just looks like a fake tree and a fake monopine, and it doesn't provide the camouflage that you're looking for. It looks like a fake pine tree cell tower. It's not camouflaged, right? Again, if you wear camouflage in the middle of the street, people see that you're wearing camouflage. If you're standing in the landscape, you blend in. Here, because it's so tall above, it's not going to provide the camouflage that we do. I've seen it. I've seen silos next to barns. I've seen trees. We've done church steeples next to churches or similar type structures in the right context. Here, it just would stick out, and you're not getting anything for your buck, and that's what people are. That's our position. And again, the galvanized steel does blend with the landscape as best we can, and you see it with most. That's why most towers are galvanized steel. So it's possible to do it, but again, you're not going to get camouflage because there isn't the context.
Unless the people who live there feel that it is.
Well, again, from the client's perspective, it's very expensive to build the monopine, right? A monopine tower, and if there's no aesthetic value, if there's limited aesthetic value to that, then it doesn't make sense. It's not a reasonable request.
Thank you.
Mr. Birch, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick thought. Two things. And, and I could be corrected, but in 2011, I spent 2 days in the clerk's office and I read the entire TDR program. It took me 2 days. And it was my understanding that the development rights included underground development, which would be your sewer lines, your water lines, or your power lines. I'm pretty sure that it didn't that wasn't a program that involved above-ground development in any way. And then my second point, I don't know if, there's a certain time period that this has to be voted on by, or if there's, a rush on this, but from what I heard from the neighbor who was sitting behind me there, I think he was asking the board if they would be willing to delay the vote on this one meeting so that he would have an opportunity to talk to Mr. Abbott. And I don't think that that's something too much to ask the board unless there's a deadline that we got to have this in by. Thank you.
Is that in fact what you were asking, Mr. Pettit?
Yes, that'd be great if I could do that. I appreciate it.
Is there any reason a delay would hurt this project?
No, other than, again, I believe our project, I'm sorry, I'm just getting to the microphone. Our project complies with the law.
Right. But is 2 weeks going to hurt the project?
I don't think so, per se. I mean, we're happy to come back in 2 weeks. My point is that Mr. Abbott has the right to place it here. The tower's in full compliance with the law. And coming back 2 weeks now doesn't change that fact. But if the board wants to provide that opportunity, we're amenable.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. So may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that public hearing is closed. So now we're going to have a public hearing to consider a local law to opt out on the on-site cannabis consumption sites in the town of Lysander as authorized under Cannabis Law, Article 4. May I have a motion to open up the public hearing?
I'll move it.
I'll second that. Okay. So is there anybody that would like to speak for or against the opting out of the local law? No?
So, I live at 2247 Connell Terrace. Just moved to town, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I believe that the decision to ban the sales is a matter on the infringement of the individual to make choices for themselves. This will not prevent people from obtaining or using cannabis, but will make it more dangerous by forcing them to either drive further, or if they're not good decision makers, consuming elsewhere and driving back. Our reality is that the area has plenty of bars and liquor stores that sell substances that are far more dangerous, that lead to more violence, more death, more destruction than cannabis. But that's not being debated right now. If someone chooses, that has the power, the authority to vote on this, and they don't drink any alcohol within the borders of Lysander, then I believe that would be a very easy position to justify, and I would completely understand that on moral grounds. But if anyone does choose to vote to ban the sale within the borders, but does consume alcohol, then they're choosing personal preference and using their position to force that personal preference on the rest of the area, but with the force of law. There were recent elections, and I didn't see all of the information, but I don't believe I saw anything that people were running on the platform of banning sales within Lysander. And I could be wrong about that, but this quick move to have this vote after the election seems like it's rushed. Again, because it does not appear that was a platform that was run on. So I don't know what community support there exists for this banning. The popularity of legalization across the nation seems like it's now broken through the majority. And I don't believe that it's ethical to take away the right of an adult to make the decision for them. It appears this is more of a parenting issue than a legal issue. I hope this board makes the choice to either, not adopt this resolution, or at least give more time to get more input from the community on this. Thank you very much for your time.
Can I ask you a
Excuse
question?
me,
Yeah,
sir.
sure.
I'll just ask his name.
Go ahead.
Elliot Bristol?
Did you sign it?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Elliott, your first name's Elliott?
Yes, my first name.
I'm sorry. Do you make a distinction, there's two laws that we're voting on. One is on-site consumption, which is a place you can go and use the stuff, and the other one are retail sales. Are you in favor of both, or?
I am in favor of both. I think both of them effectively, banning either forces people to leave the area and then come back. You're not going to stop people. I don't believe you're going to stop people from obtaining the cannabis. And I just think that this proposition makes it more difficult for people to do it safely.
I just wanted to clarify if you were talking about both. Thank you.
Okay, so this first, no, you can come up. That's what I just wanted to clarify. So we have two public hearings. This first one is for public hearing on the consumption site. So establishments that would allow people to go in and consume marijuana. Then after we get through that, we are going to have a public hearing on distribution, the sale of establishments that will sell it, kind of like the liquor store. So, but this one's for consumption.
Okay, I'll try not to conflate the two. Fred Birch, Oswego Road.
You can talk on either one of them. I just want to be
Okay,
clear.
now I'll address the first one, and then I'll come up after that for the second one.
Can you turn that?
On the top, yeah.
Someone's having a hard time hearing other than.
Test one, two.
There you go.
We didn't even close off though. The on-site consumption, I like to make analogies. I guess it's the easiest way of showing people or expressing people an opinion or something like that. But in the past, when people would attend the New York State Fair, there was a law against cannabis marijuana consumption. So, I mean, if people were to consume it at the fair in the past, they were in hidden alleys or in the concert area or whatever. And since then, New York law has made it legal to consume it in designated areas. And so this year at the fair, if you attended it, I'm sure you smelled it. I mean, but the people went to the designated areas. In my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, I listened to Lonsberry at 3 o'clock and stuff, and I think he shares the same opinion. If there wasn't a designated area, people would go to all different areas. Maybe try to hide it, maybe not try to hide it, realizing that they might only get a slap on the hand. So I think that's something to consider, that if people choose to consume that and they have a place to go that's friendly, they might choose to do it there, as opposed to walking up and down the street in the village of Baldwinsville, where parents and little kids can see it, and then there has to be a conversation about it. I mean, as it stands now, and I'm not a lawyer, but from what I understand about the law in New York State, that wherever it's legal to smoke tobacco, that it's legal to smoke marijuana, unless a special law, like the Village of Baldwinsville recently passed a law that there's no consumption of cannabis in the town parks or the village parks, which would include Mercer, Lyons, Community, and the town park, because it's within the village limits. They just recently did this within the last month. They voted on both things. But I think there's a misconception in society today, or a non-realization of where most of the public is on this. I don't think this is Harley Davidson riders with leather jackets and tattoos outside of bars. That, from my personal experience, I've seen people in this community who are educators, county workers, current and former law enforcement, business entrepreneurs, maybe even misguided youth in this community. So there's a wide spectrum.
I'm trying to figure out which one
So my point is, and I appreciate it, but the point I'm trying to make is, I think we're all kidding each other if we think it's, you know, the Hells Angels that are, I mean, there's professional athletes. I wouldn't be surprised if members of the Syracuse Orange are. So is this something that, and I know it's something that can be amended in the future if we see that it's a problem, but I just think if people go to bars because they have a friendly place to go and they keep their, normally keep their business drinking, or their drinking business there. If there weren't bars to go to, they might bring this out in the street and create a different problem. So that's just, I wanted you to maybe think about it from a different perspective. Thank you.
Gene Dinsmore, 7493 Highland Drive. I would like to say that the first gentleman who spoke had the right idea. And you originally had the right idea a few weeks ago when you first took this matter up. We have a situation where the legislature and the governor created a statewide law, and now, initially, most all the towns accepted it. And now a few have chickened out because they got this deal now that you don't, if you go against it now, you can change it later. Okay, if we're gonna have this law, and believe me, I don't smoke pot, I hate the idea, I wish it never happened. However, it did happen, and the state and the governor has made it the law of our land. Okay, and if we're gonna have it, you might as well get on it right away. Get on it first and foremost to make sure that you set the standard for the thing. You don't create a problem for law enforcement where we have a law that we can't enforce, and we're causing all our young people mostly, and I'm sure there's a few old people that will be going across to Salina or wherever they have to go to get it. But I think you're foolishly, the idea, and I know that all of you don't have the same idea about this as the person that suggested this step that you're considering. So I'm just saying that I don't know this gentleman over here, but he actually explained it very well. He talked about making it dangerous and troublesome for the people who do want to use marijuana to go, you know, have to get in a car and drive to Salina or East Syracuse or some other place to get what they want and are entitled to under state law. So, and you, just a few weeks back, you all agreed to approve this. So now, all of a sudden, it's become on the table that maybe we shouldn't go so quick, maybe we should put a postponement on it. Go ahead, but I can't believe the state is gonna change their mind. The state legislature is drooling over the idea of the millions of dollars in revenue that this is going to bring forth. So they think. And you know what? It'd be nice if that didn't happen and it caused the whole thing to collapse. That would be fine with me. But for the time being, it's the state law, and you might as well, get with the program and get there first. Don't wait until Salina and whoever else has shown the way. Okay? And, what was your name again?
Elliot.
He knew exactly what he was talking about, and I hope you all listen carefully. Thank you.
The mic wasn't on. I wanted to say it again.
Okay.
You have to get up close to that mic and get right into it. Otherwise it doesn't work.
It was off.
What was that?
I know, it was off before, but now it's on.
Yes,
But you
you've been doing very well. You're very
still
good.
gotta get right into it.
I know,
Get
my
right-
mouth
Okay.
is swallowed.
So is there anyone else that would like to speak on the consumption portion of this?
Good evening, Matt Hunt, 8292 Oswego Road. I have to agree with Mr. Dinsmore. There was a previous public discussion about this. Everybody seemed in favor of opting in. I've seen nothing as to a solid reason why we're trying to opt out, nor have I seen or heard any public outcry for that side of the argument. But I think we're missing the boat on tax revenue, tourism. This is no different than a wine bar, cigar bar, a bar, other than the driving afterwards is much safer than the bar or the wine bar. So we're losing tax revenue on it. People are gonna go to other towns and do it. We're taking that choice away from them to do it here when the state has approved it. And it's the increased miles of driving to another town and back that are dangerous, according to insurance statistics, higher increased rate for traffic accidents, not because of marijuana, because of the increased miles they're driving. According to the National Highway Safety Administration and the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, they still cannot conclude that marijuana has real negative effects on driving and cannot correlate it to increased accidents. They say we think, maybe, it looks like, but there's nothing directly relating that.
But that's, the problem with that is there is no testing for that. So when, I can tell you right now, when someone's involved in some sort of incident or accident where they're driving in an intoxicated condition, almost 100% of the time there's alcohol involved in it. So if they're driving in an intoxicated condition and they have alcohol on them and they're intoxicated because of alcohol, then police wouldn't be inclined to take them down to get a blood test, which is the only way that you're going to be able to do it. So those statistics would be skewed because police, as a common practice, at least from my experience, and there's no way for them to quantify, if marijuana was involved, other than finding marijuana out of it.
Right, understandable. And by the time they do test it, there's such minimal traces of it that that's the other thing. It gets absorbed into the body and released from the body much differently than alcohol, much quicker. But again, it's a 44-page research submitted to Congress by the National Highway Safety Administration, and basically says, yes, if there's alcohol and marijuana involved, there's a little bit of an increased risk. But if you back out the alcohol, there's no extra risk associated. So I understand there's not a quality way to measure it right now, but there's also no statistics that support that driving while under the influence of marijuana really increases your risk of crashing, but forcing residents to drive to another town and increase the miles on the car that they drive inherently increases their risk of a crash, just according to insurance and highway statistics. So I'm in favor of it. We're missing the boat on tourism, sales tax, and we're forcing people to take extra risks by driving elsewhere and coming back. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Rivas. and I live in 124 Searwood. Actually live across the river in Van Buren County. But I was interested in this topic. I just find it very interesting. I have a lot of friends in the Lysander area, so I just want to ask for clarification. Just the town board's personal opinion. So I've been going back, listening to the different arguments, people for and against it. Now, one of the points that people who favor the on-site cannabis consumption legislation, who support it, one of the arguments is that if people have to drive farther away, that creates more of a risk on the road. Now, is that in the sense of just any traffic issue that might come up, or as a result of them using the cannabis? Would you say it would be both?
I don't know.
Okay, well, because, you know, I agree, yeah, if they have to drive farther, obviously there's a chance for an incident. But then again, if they're driving and they're under the influence of marijuana, I won't want them driving farther and risking an incident, you know, farther away, like, you know, having to go to another town, but I won't want to risk an incident here in our community either. So to me, the argument, it seems like a no-win no matter which way you look at it. So I'm trying to learn more about this issue because I'll be honest, I'm ignorant for the most part about a lot of aspects of marijuana use. I don't personally use it. My family doesn't use it. But, you know, my personal concern is I feel that with distractions, all the distractions that drivers have with their phones, and obviously there's alcohol abuse, I do feel like marijuana is just one more added distraction. But, you know, I respect individual rights. I respect someone's right to do what they want to do in the privacy of their home. I respect their right to, you know, make an argument for legalizing it, but I just hope that the board considers the larger implications of how this might affect other drivers on the road. To me, it's just one more variable in the mix that we don't need. And like I said, I'm not the most educated on this topic. It's something I'm still learning about. But I was looking at statistics from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Highway Loss Data Institute, which the previous gentleman who spoke mentioned. And he mentioned how the statistics are not conclusive, and he's quite right, that is true. But the only statistic that does seem conclusive that they have come across is that in states where marijuana was legalized, there was a spike in auto-related incidents. So I'm not going to tell the board how to vote, but I do hope you just take all the safety considerations into consideration. I'm a big believer in individual rights and liberty, but not if it's going to have a negative impact on the community. And like I said, I am speaking from a place of ignorance, still learning, but I trust the board to consider all aspects before moving forward, do what's best for the community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure.
Matt Hunt, 8292 Oswego Road. Just a point of clarification, I did read those slight spikes as well in those states, 4 to 5% in the months after legalization. And then if you look further, they all leveled back off to normal rates. And those aren't conclusive. All they're saying is it was legalized, then this happened. Seems to make sense is what the argument is. But they also mention things like it was brand new. And now you have neighboring states who don't have legalized marijuana. Those people are driving to that state, again, increasing traffic. It's a new thing. So it spiked for months, then it settled back down. I'd also mention that these studies from the National Highway Traffic Administration and the Insurance Institutes for Highway Safety also mention that in their studies, alcohol shows aggressive behavior while driving, additional speed while driving, and less control while driving, while studies show marijuana, slower speeds, more space between vehicles, and less urgency to pass people. So it looks like people are slowing down and being a little more cautious as compared to marijuana. So just want to clarify. Thank you.
Well, we're not gonna get into a debate about it, but, I mean, if you got something new, but it's not gonna be a debate then, so,
Sure.
because we get your point.
Oh, no, absolutely, I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to start a debate by any means. See, I'm a very nervous public speaker, I never usually do it, but, so, you know, some of my thoughts don't, always come out. But, I have looked at the same statistics that the gentleman referred to. Did very good research, and I agree that, the idea that if the drivers are driving slower and keeping a further distance to other vehicles, that does sound like a positive. But at the same time, I can just say from my personal experience, I have a good job now, but that has not always been the case. I've worked many jobs where I worked around people who used, and hey, that's fine. They do, that's their lives. They do what they want to do. But I've seen many people come to work high, and basically, some people are very good. Some people can handle it, just like some people you never tell, perfectly functional. But it's an individual thing. Everybody has a different body chemistry. You never know how somebody's going to react to it. I've seen people who came to work high who were screwing up in a way they normally did not do. So I think it's, from a safety issue perspective, I think it does warrant a little extra consideration. I would also say that I know a number of people have brought up the fact that this is going to bring in greater tax revenue. And that's an appealing idea, more money, more, funds that can possibly go back into the community. Well, in my lifetime, I've seen the local government, and again, I live in Van Buren County, so this isn't you, but I've seen the local government raise taxes on property and raise taxes several times over the years. I myself am a homeowner. So is it really so much an issue of needing the extra funding or money management? If we're able to manage our funds correctly, is that additional amount really going to make that big a splash in the pond? So that's all for me.
Real quick.
Okay.
I'll make it real quick. Frederick, Plainville Road. When I grew up in the town of Lysander, we were poor. I mean, in the town too. And we didn't have a town park. And every day the kids would play football in the street. Telephone pole was one end zone. The next telephone pole down was the other end zone. Streets. In the winter we used it too. You could dive into the snowbank, so we have a little extra fun. But the point I'm trying to make is we didn't have a football field or a basketball field or a tennis court. We made that. Before the Castor Bridge development went in there, that used to be a field. And there was 10 or 12 kids that took our parents' lawnmower and we went out there and we pushed through 3-foot high weeds and we made a baseball field. So if we didn't have a place to do what we wanted to do, we went out and made a place. I think for those people who choose to do that type of thing, if they have a comfortable place to go, where they're around people that are comfortable with them, they'll probably keep it to there. But the chances are, is if they don't have that football field or that tennis court, that they're gonna go make that wherever it suits them or fits them. And that's kind of how I look at it. If they have a friendly place, they'll go there. If they don't have a friendly place, we might see it in 12, 20 different places that you wouldn't have imagined. Thank you.
That's one thing I hadn't thought about. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move it. I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, may I have a motion to, well, at first, we're gonna have a public hearing to consider a local law to opt out of allowing cannabis retail dispensaries in the town of Lysander as authorized under cannabis law Article 4. Okay, so probably everybody covered most of that anyway, but may I have a motion to open up the public hearing?
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Okay, is there anyone that wish to speak further on that issue?
Will Stoll, 61 Brown. I hope that when the board does hopefully approve these, approve cannabis sales, that we give the first crack to local residents to open up the dispensary and whatnot, instead of giving it to somebody.
That won't come to us. That's through the Cannabis Control Board, and we don't have any control.
Oh, really?
The Cannabis Control Board, just like the Liquor Authority, they're the ones that will push that out.
Hopefully New York State will get it figured out, so, all right, thanks.
City Clerk, 27 West Genesee Street. I just want to make it known that I am for the dispensaries, for the reasons that other people have stated here tonight, that there's a lot of revenue involved. Keep it here. I think as far as you're talking about proper money management, I think the town does a good job right now. And I think any extra would be a bonus for all of us and help keeping taxes down, just like you've been doing it. And if we have an opportunity for the revenue, why not? Why give it to somebody else? Let's be realistic, it's legal. Why give it to some other town? I don't know what the deal is with the opt-out here, whether you need more information on it. I don't know. But nonetheless, you know, anybody I've talked to is for the dispensary. Most people don't really care about where they smoke it because, let's face it, years ago we'd smoke it at home most of the time. So, because a lot of people used to just smoke at home, listen to music. That's where it was at. But that's not my big concern. My big concern is the dispensary and the opportunity for our community to reap the benefits, because if we don't, somebody else will. And it's my understanding, I don't know if Matt, you've found any figures in Colorado or other states where it's legal, but I think the numbers are absolutely astounding for revenue. I should have probably done some more homework, but I know I've talked to people where they say you would not believe the revenue that they get on this stuff. Why not here? Because somebody's gonna get it. We might as well. Thank you.
Fred Birch, Plainville Road. As far as the retail dispensaries are concerned, I'm sure this board has looked at some of the adjacent and surrounding towns, and some of them have already voted on this. And we do have townships that are adjacent to us that have opted in for the retail dispensary. And so the way I look at it is people that choose to do that type of thing are going to drive to these local areas 10 or 15 minutes away and spend their money, and those local townships are going to get the 3% sales tax instead of the town of Lysander. Probably, I don't know, I'll throw maybe at least 50% of these people are going to purchase enough to bring home with them, which means that they'll be consuming it in our township, and our township will be losing out on that. Now, I have a friend that lives in the city, and he took a vacation on Thanksgiving to Massachusetts. And he told me for a thrill, he went to one of these dispensaries and he said the line was over 500 people long. And I mean, he actually took pictures of it with his phone and video and stuff and sent it out.
I've
So-
seen that, right.
So,
We got some of the numbers.
yeah. And the other thing is I apologize because I'm not as prepared. I didn't think I was going to be talking about this subject. I should have brought better materials with me. But the states that they're talking about that have opted in for a decade or so, they did have spikes and things have leveled out. But another way of looking at this is, I think if you look at these states that have opted in long ago and look at their suicide rate compared to the states that don't have legal marijuana, you'll see that those states are a lot higher. I'm not sure if there's a direct correlation, but it's numbers that are out there that you can look at. So there's really a big picture, you know, that we're looking at. And I would just ask the board to, you know, consider as many thoughts and opinions as possible. And myself, not for one way or the other way, but everybody that I've talked to in the town of Lysander didn't seem to have an issue. Now, I'm not going to church on Sundays and talking to ladies that have been going there for 50 years, but, you know, I talk with people that are my age, and I haven't seen anybody that was that upset about it. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move it.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. So we move on to citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that want to speak on any other subject relating to town business?
I'm on a roll here.
You're getting your money's worth.
Hey, thank you, and I appreciate the time too. And I appreciate, with respect to the last meeting and my comments and questions regarding the backup power and stuff like that, and I appreciate your comments and further insight on that. I would just ask this board if they might be able to let the public know if, I'm not sure if there's, you know, maintenance fees involved with this on a yearly basis, and and if there is, are maintenance fees going to be, is that going to be a taxpayer situation, or is that going to be a system, a topic where the grants might also cover that? And then, as far as fuel, I'm pretty sure they run on propane, you know, and when we fill them up, is that going to be a taxpayer thing, or is that also something that, you know, we might be able to find outside funding for? Thank you.
Anyone else? Town board comments. We'll start with you tonight, Mr. Diamond.
If it's all right, I'd like to let Mr. Drowsy go first.
Well, I apologize to the group. I was going to leave early. I had a commitment. I decided because of the comments made tonight that I'm sticking for the whole board meeting. I don't usually miss them, so I don't need to leave. Sure. But since I'm talking, I'm going to defer my comments on the cannabis legislation when we come to those resolutions to vote on them, rather than speak at this point on them. You'll hear what I'm going to say anyway.
Okay, got anything else, Mr. Diamond?
The only thing I want us to talk about is the cannabis legislation, but I will defer my comments for that as well. So,
It's up to you.
So I just want to thank Al Yeager for all his work that he did with the streetlights. I don't know if you guys have been driving around town, but seeing the new LED streetlights that are up there. Al did a lot of research over the years, made it possible, made it happen. So Al, I want to say thank you for that.
Good job.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay, I'm going to completely change the topic. On Thanksgiving Day, I was up at the high school for the 53rd annual Baldwinsville Turkey Day race. It was so good to see our community come together once again in a way that, on a holiday that I cherish, in a way that I love. Families from throughout the greater Baldwinsville area and beyond showed up to run a 5 or 10K. And like I said, it's been going on for 53 years, organized by the Baldwinsville Kiwanis Club, raising money for the youth in our society. And it was just wonderful to see everybody out there. It's one of my favorite things on Thanksgiving morning, to see people come together. So to everybody who organizes that, everyone who comes out and runs, our corporate sponsors, everybody who plays any part in that, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who came out tonight as well. I like hearing all of your comments, and thanks to those of you who are watching at home.
All right. Just when we talk about things going development or anything else going in the town, it's our responsibility to, we're elected, so we have the responsibility to make decisions, and it is our responsibility, and that's why we got elected, and that's what you're paying us for, to make those decisions, and we try to base it on what's best for the town, listening to people in the town. And with any type of progress, there's always going to be somebody that's affected, and from their perspective, it may be negative. And I appreciate that. From an individual's perspective, something that may, 5,000 people might be good for them, but for that 1 or 2 or 10 or 100 people, it might be a negative. And I understand that. But it's our responsibility to do what's best for the majority of the town. And even though it may be negative for some people, but the majority, a vast majority, it's beneficial to them, sometimes we have to go with who it benefits the most and how it's benefiting them. Well, with this tower, I understand, if you live next to it, you have a tower next to it, yeah. I probably wouldn't want one right next to me either. Although, when I moved in, I do have power lines down the road, and that's a trade-off. I have a road right in front of my house. That's a trade-off, but they were already there. So when they come in, I understand your perspectives, but especially with cell phone use, there is a component of public safety and just everyday life. People, it's not like years ago where not that many, back in the 80s, nobody had computers. Now everybody has computers. People work from home, kids have to go to school, and even though you might live close to somebody might have good reception, somebody 2 doors down might have terrible reception. And if we can rectify that, I think we have a responsibility to ensure that everybody has the same quality of life in the town. When it comes to sewer, when it comes to water, when it comes to public utilities, which internet and telephone service are. So, that's our responsibility to make those decisions. And even though I understand that it could be a negative for some people, we still have to do what's best for the town overall. But that doesn't mean that we don't, or at least that I don't understand your perspective and don't have some compassion for your point of view, but still, I'm hired to do what's best for the town in general, and that's how I base my decisions on. All right, so why don't we move on to department heads? We'll start with you, Mr. Rivazigno.
I have nothing to do.
Mr. Mayor?
Neither do I.
No. Mr. Yeager? Anything?
Nothing to see.
Ms. Falcone?
All set, thank you.
Okay, that was painless. So we'll move on to the regular agenda items. So what I'm suggesting is that when we talk to the cell tower people, postponing or tabling motions A and B on the Tarpon Towers wouldn't affect them that negatively, and it would give residents an opportunity to talk to Mr. Abbott, and I think that, from my perspective, that's a reasonable request. So what I'm suggesting to the board is that we table items A and B until our next meeting. Actually, let's see. We don't have to take one action. Yeah, A and B until the next meeting.
I am in agreement with that.
I thought
You want a motion for that?
Yeah, why don't we have a motion?
I'll move that we table it to the next meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then we will table motion A and B till the next meeting,
When is the next meeting?
16th.
16th, on Thursday the 16th.
Could I add one thing to that?
Sure.
Mr. Supervisor? I don't know how the conversation would go with Mr. Abbott. You know, I wish you the best of luck. But I would also hope that within that 2-week time period, maybe if you could take some time as a spokesperson for Verizon to sit down with, I mean, and I understand what you're saying about the camouflaging, and I understand what the residents are saying about the camouflaging. If a 15-minute discussion perhaps would help everybody understand both points of view. And I don't know if you want to, but if you have to have 2 weeks and you can put 15 minutes together, I think it might be worth at least a discussion. Show the drawings, show what it would look like. Give another option, A or B, or A, B, or C, something, just to try to alleviate some of that concern. And maybe what I'm asking is not reasonable also, I don't know, but you got 2 weeks, I think maybe. I am in favor of improving the cell service out there. If these two issues could get taken care of, I would really be happy. So.
Yeah, I don't think, if I can speak,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody doesn't want the cell tower. It sounds like it's good for the community. I don't think it's gonna bother me either way. I've never dropped a call, but it's just the location. These people coming down Camerondale and they look at that thing. It's gonna, if it stays there, it's gonna blend away. I'm never gonna see it from my house, very tip top, maybe.
You have 2 weeks to
Right.
see what we can do.
Right, and I just wanted to talk to them and see if I can
Okay.
get them to move it on the other side of the woods, that's all.
And you got that?
Thank you, I appreciate all you guys do.
Sure.
I don't think anybody is.
He's my neighbor, I talk to him all the time.
Okay, so, item C, is there a motion for the town of Lysander to opt out of the on-site cannabis consumption site as authorized under Cannabis Law, Article 4?
I'll move it.
I will second that.
Okay, just so the public knows, a yes vote means that we're opting out of the on-site cannabis consumption.
Which is subject to permissive referendum.
Right.
Pardon me?
Which is subject to.
Oh, yeah, which allow, if we opt out, that allows citizens the right for permissive referendum. So you could put, if there were enough citizens, and I think they would need probably about 600 signatures.
I think it's 5% or whatever.
Yeah, 5%, which is about 600. They could force a referendum on that.
Is there a little more discussion before we go to the vote?
Yep.
All right, so Mr. Dinsmore and Mr. Hunt also both, looking at this on the agenda, I can kind of see where you would think, and these were the words, you're trying to opt out, or you were in and now you got chicken and now you want to postpone it. That's not at all what we're trying to do up here. What we're trying to do actually is get feedback from the community and give them, the community, an option to accept or to opt into the New York State law. It isn't that we're trying to opt out or trying to stop people from having this. If we choose, in either of these two cases, opting out of the on-site, let's just take the one, cannabis consumption. If this board chooses to opt out, we are giving the permission to the community to make that decision on their own. That's what we're doing. We're not saying it can't be done. We're not making it impossible to have on-site consumption sites in the town of Lysander. We are actually saying, all right, because there are some people for it and some people against it, let's give the people a chance to vote, and that's what would happen. You would have to go out, you would have to collect 5% of the signatures.
Yeah, I believe that's what
It would come up to a referendum, and then we could vote it. It would become part of, you could vote it in, all right? Same with the second one. And there are towns that have done that and said, all right, you know what, if you want to, we're going to put this in the citizens' hands, which is, in some cases, what we want to do. I will also say, Mr. Birch, you did bring up something I hadn't thought about, and that is if there is a place for people to, your analogy didn't fit 100% with me, but if there was a place for people to consume, to smoke marijuana, then they may not be smoking it elsewhere. Well, there are laws against just walking down the street drinking alcohol. There are laws against that. There are not laws against walking down the street smoking marijuana. You can. If you can smoke a cigarette there, you can smoke marijuana there. So the analogy, well, I appreciate your analogies. It wasn't a perfect match, but it did make me think about the consumption versus the distribution.
Can I go? Sure. So what I will be saying next applies to both resolutions in terms of the background, or maybe even call it my thinking or philosophy on this. And the thing I also want to clarify for folks, I think Mr. Moore raised a great point that if we vote to opt out, it gives the citizenry a right to petition to change that. But even more important than that, voting to opt out doesn't preclude the town to voting to opt in at some later point. If you do vote to opt in at this point, you can't ever opt out. Do you understand that? Once you vote to opt in, you're set. Whereas if we voted to opt out tonight, and 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now, and I'm going to be reading something in a moment, we said, maybe that was a mistake. We have every right in the world to vote to opt in. Just want to make sure that's clear. I've been struggling with this one, and sometimes good things happen when you struggle. So today's messenger arrived in my mailbox, and I don't know this individual, Mr. Kevin McCormick. He's a town board member in Skinny Atlas. He's also been a federal prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney. And in this letter, and you can all read it because if you get the messenger, I thought it was a well-written letter. I'm just going to skim through it to give you the thoughts that he basically put into words what I was thinking. He's going to vote to opt out for both of the opportunities in the town of Skinny Atlas. The first one was, here are the facts. The state has not issued any rules what opting in means. We are locked in. The state has not yet issued any regulations implementing the rules of recreational marijuana. We don't know how licenses will be issued, how sales tax revenue will be collected and distributed, where dispensaries or on-site consumption sites will be located, and a host of other important issues. If we opt in, we are stuck. We would be binding all future boards with this decision without knowing what the state regulations will be or the consequences of marijuana dispensaries in other towns. What is the rush to opt in? The amount of tax revenue from marijuana sales is entirely speculative. I heard a lot of, oh my goodness, we're going to rake in lots of money. You know what? No one has shown me any facts in terms of how much money Onondaga County sales are going to generate. But some people have raised the specter of substantial free tax revenue. There's no guarantee of the amount of revenue from this, and if you get it, we have to share it. It's based on a 4% sale of marijuana. He makes an interesting point that I had not thought of. To really increase the revenue, you have to attract people from out of town to come to the town of Lysander to spend their money. And you're going to say, well, what's wrong with that? You might want to think about that in terms of, do we really want to have folks coming in just to buy cannabis and then leaving our town? And then as a former attorney, both on the defense and the prosecutor side, he makes some following points that I had also not thought of. What about the costs of opting in? There have been no assessment of the costs of opting in, including the cost of government oversight, law enforcement, other first responders, the school system, medical, drug rehabilitation, and social services. None of these factors have been considered. And he goes on to stress that for that reason, he's voting to opt out at this point in time. Until those things, until the dust settles, so to speak, the town of Skinny Atlas has every opportunity to vote to opt in. It could be 6 months from now, you know what, this is really working for the town of Van Buren. Why don't we do it here in the town of Lysander? Ultimately, this is an issue that you struggle with spiritually, ethically, morally. Am I saying I am going to make the right decision, that you all, should follow my thoughts on that? No. It's a very personal decision, and even though I represent all of the constituents here, this will be my toughest vote that I've made for the town, based on what I just read you, and based on the fact that, you know what, just because New York State did it doesn't make it right for us in local governments. I mean, I don't know anybody here that really likes the SAFE Act that New York State passed in Albany. I certainly don't. New York State in Albany does a lot of things that local governments have to just kind of grin and bear it, but it doesn't mean that we really like it. And so I think we have every right in the world as a local municipality to say, you know what, you passed that law, but we don't agree with it right now, and we don't have to. And at least the state is giving us that option. So I will be voting no, yes, actually, on both of these resolutions to opt out.
So I want to take a moment.
We gotta go.
I'm done.
Sorry.
So I'd like to thank Councilor Gerasi, thank Councilor Moore. I share both of their thoughts. I want to address a couple quick things that were brought up tonight. As it was stated in the very beginning, New York State kind of dropped this on us in February, and they said towns and villages need to try to decide for themselves how they're going to handle this. As it was just mentioned, there's a lot of regulations that still haven't come out. Some statements were made tonight about car accidents, insurance accidents. What I can tell you is this: AAA is not a huge political lobbying group that we hear a lot about. But when marijuana legislation first came out, AAA came out and said, we have some serious concerns about this. This could bring out a lot of distractions, as was brought up tonight. This could increase accidents. This could increase injuries. This could increase fatalities. I am an insurance agent, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. There is the possibility of tax revenue. So I sat on the school board years ago, and there was a conversation at one point about the lottery system. And the lotteries were going to bring in so much money to education that we weren't going to have to raise school taxes. You guys remember the state talking about how we don't have to raise school taxes? That didn't happen. I don't know if the school districts are getting any money. The last time I had a conversation with school board members, they weren't seeing any money because of the lotteries. I'm not convinced that tax revenue should be the reason why we should do this. I think one of the things that was mentioned in that article that Councilor Gerasi read or shared parts of was that if the municipalities are going to do this, we should do this because this is the right decision, not because we're being bought and sold for some tax revenue. The great thing about the town board opting out right now is that we could opt in February. A new board could come in and make the decision to opt in. Or as was mentioned a few moments ago, citizens could go out and get petitions. I want to wait and see what happens. You know, in 6 months, let's revisit this, let's have a conversation, and let's see what's going on. I guarantee we're not going to lose out because we're waiting a little bit longer. I'm more concerned about voting to bring in something and then seeing a car accident happen in Baldwinsville or in the town of Lysander or outside the town of Lysander, and it was because somebody was distracted and they just lost their daughter, they just lost their son, maybe they were in the hospital. You know, you see distractions all the time, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cell phones, whether it's music. You know, I just don't want to see another distraction in the town. Councilor Gerasi said this was a very difficult decision for him. This is one I'm very passionate about. I think this is public safety. Some people disagree with me on this. It's not the first time I've had people disagree with me on this. I have family members that strongly disagree with me on this. So, but this is where I'm at. And I wanted to be honest with everybody. At least you know where I stand.
So I'll go. I'm making my decision tonight on who I talk to out in the community, you guys, all your boys. I didn't hear a lot of no's, right? I did hear no's on the consumption bar, right? You go there, you smoke dope, and then you get in your car and you drive back. It's not like a bar where you can have a beer with your family, get in the car and drive home. There, you're high. And, you know, then you have to get in your car and drive home. You're gonna get in accidents. Now we know right now in New York State it's legal. We don't wanna miss the boat like we did with the casinos. The Indians put casinos on their land. Look at Turning Stone right now. And then in New York, they put one out Del Largo. How's that doing compared to Turning Stone? It's getting crushed. Why? Because we missed the boat. So I am for the dispensary, but the consumption bar, I'm not for. I'm just laying out my cards.
Okay. And again, you know, when the state passes laws, I don't necessarily always agree with the laws that they pass, but the fact that they passed the law on marijuana, it's now legal. So, and if you looked in the paper for the town, like some towns had a vote, but according to our attorney and associations of towns, we didn't have the authority as a town to put it up for a referendum. Otherwise, we would have done that. Other towns did it. We don't know how they did it, but that's up to them. Villages certainly could do it. Some villages put it up for referendum. Now, when you look at the numbers of the vote, at least locally, it was split right down the middle, pretty much 50-50. 49, 51, 50, 50. It was really close. So what that tells me is there's 50% of the population that is for having some form of marijuana in their neighborhood or in their community. So now I look at the distribution. If you're going to have distribution here, there is a benefit to the town. And at least 50% of the people will now be able to purchase something that they're purchasing anyway, probably illegally. And if they're purchasing it illegally, there's a good chance that it may be laced with fentanyl. There's a lot of fentanyl coming into the United States now. They're lacing the marijuana with that, and people are starting to smoke it. And if they don't die, they get extremely sick. But there's a chance that they could even die. So we don't want that. So if you have a dispensary, at least it's going to be regulated by the state, and you know that it's not going to be laced with fentanyl. There's going to be, I know they have different quantities. You can get it in different, 5 milligrams or whatever, and whatever dosage you want. What's the additional benefit? The additional benefit is the revenue. Now, like Mr. Kudaraskis said, what's the problem with waiting? Well, the problem with waiting is they're going to issue their licenses. We had a gentleman get up and was asking about licenses. Well, the state issues the licenses. Well, that's going to be on a first come, first served basis. Well, right now, Town of Van Buren has decided to opt in for retail sales. Town of Clay has decided to opt in for both retail sales and consumption. So we have people on both sides of us that are opting in for retail sales. So people in town of Lysander could just drive over the bridge in either direction and get their marijuana. So they're going to get it whether 50% of them are going to get it whether we like it or not. So where's the benefit? We're losing out on tax revenue, and nobody's buying us, but if we have an opportunity to have tax revenue, that's going to be there anyway. We can't prevent it. It's going to happen. Why shouldn't we avail ourselves of that additional tax revenue and try to offset some of our other costs? Some of the things that was in that article, I think there's a lot of holes in it. We do know how one of the things that that gentleman talked about in the article was we don't know how the revenues are going to be distributed. But correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rivazigno, but the county gets 4% of that, of which we get 3%. Any town that opts in on that.
The county gets 4% of the 9% tax, but then that's divided between all of the towns within the county. and that's divided based upon the number of, or the amount that you sell in your town versus the amount that another, it's prorated in other words.
But we do know those numbers, we do know what we're.
Yeah.
So, and there was a couple other things that I think that there were some assumptions made, and I don't think that they're correct. But for us, I think a retail establishment, there are some benefits to the town that you can certainly point out. Now, with the consumption portion of it, some people got up and said, well, why do we want people driving somewhere else and then driving back into the town after they've already consumed their marijuana? Well, what about when people drive into the town, consume marijuana at a consumption place, and then drive out? So they're making an argument. And I disagree with the fact, and this is just from personal knowledge, from being a cop for 39 years, that marijuana is usually associated with alcohol, and because you got to wash it down with something while you're eating your Twinkies. And when you do, and when cars do drive slower, that causes accident too. I mean, if you get somebody driving on a road that's driving 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour in a 65 mile an hour zone, well, how many people are driving 65? Not very many. So that can cause problems too. And there's no doubt that reaction time is affected by marijuana use. So even though there are statistics for it, it's because there really isn't any way to gather those statistics for the insurance company to have. It just isn't there. And cops, if they can arrest them for DWI, they're not going to go through that process because it's driving in an intoxicated condition. And whether you're driving in intoxicated under alcohol or marijuana or both, it doesn't matter, you're still driving in an intoxicated condition. So where's the benefit to the town? I don't think that the revenue we're going to get from people coming into the town is going to be that great. I just don't see the benefit for us on a consumption site. So I'm gonna vote to opt out of the consumption, but I do believe that there are enough reasons to opt in on the dispensary, especially with this, with people, 50% of the people countywide are saying, yeah, we want it, and almost to the person, with the exception of a couple of board members, the people that we've heard from the community, they wanted the dispensary. So for that reason, I'm gonna say that we want to opt in on the dispensaries. So so that's that. So we're in the discussion part on motion C, and that's to opt out of the on-site cannabis consumption sites and authorized under cannabis law, Article 4. So a yes vote is to opt out of the on-site consumption. So do we want to take roll call?
Please.
Sure. Start with you, Mr. Diamond.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion C passes. So now we'll move on to motion D. May I have a motion for the town of Lysander to opt out of allowing cannabis retail dispensaries in the town of Lysander as authorized under cannabis law, Article 4.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? No? Okay. So a no vote means that, or a yes vote means that we want to opt out of the cannabis retail sales. We'll start again. Start with you, Mr. Diamond.
Aye.
No.
No?
Aye.
No.
Okay. So the noes have it. Motion failed. All right. May I have a motion to authorize the town supervisor to sign the contract drawing amendment, cover sheet, and BSP-5 for the Crimson Ridge Phase 5 subdivision as recommended in the town engineer's letter dated November 30th, 2021.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Mr. Yeager, you want to just explain what that is?
Yeah, back in January, the developer came to us with a plan to add 2 additional lots on Saban Road, which required a sewer main extension. The developer has come back and has eliminated one of those lots because somebody wanted a double lot. So he does not need to do the sewer main extension, so this just allows one sewer lateral to tap into an existing manhole.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. May I have a motion to accept the resignation of Therese Pierce effective Friday, December 3rd, 2021?
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Therese Pierce was our comptroller, and for personal reasons, she decided to resign from that position. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. Okay, we've already had our executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn at 8:45?
I'll move it. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Aye.